Greetings, and today I have another video for you guys. So before I get started, if this is your first time in the channel, I like to make Gwent content, but sometimes I like to make other gaming content as well. So if that's your kind of thing, please do leave a subscribe to the channel, it would be great. So today's video is sort of a follow-up from the first ever, well not first ever, but the first cards that should be crafted list that I made for the Monsters faction, and I thought I would make one for the Nilfgaardian faction. So this is mostly meant to those who are just starting out in Gwent, and with the Android release coming out in the first quarter of 2020, I'll be expecting quite a few of you to be joining the community because I know there have been people who have been wanting an Android release. So again, those are probably people who've already played before, but you know, I've also seen a couple of new faces already on my streams, and if you're not following me yet on Twitch, the link is always in the description below. I mostly stream Gwent, but maybe once a week I'll do a sort of casual stream where I'll just play a single player game, and that'll be your guys' sort of opportunity to talk to me, ask me about anything. So today's video is I've listed 5 cards from the Nilfgaardian faction that you know should be crafted, at least what I think, based on sort of how Nilfgaard plays. And the way Nilfgaard is played is, you know, this card manipulates a lot of the game's mechanics. When I say by that is it manipulates the deck, it manipulates hero power, it manipulates the field, you know, all that stuff. So this deck is it's pretty much in any way you can find in sort of disrupting your opponent's field without actually damaging them. Nilfgaard does it. So the list I have with me here, let me just pull it up. So the first card I have listed on here is a card called Stefans. What Stefans does is he, on order, he spawns and plays a copy of the last tactic card that's already been played this round. So Nilfgaard has a lot of tactic cards. So if we step away from Stefans for a second, a lot of tactic cards, you include one like Bribery, which is a super huge one, which lets you create a unit from your opponent's starting deck. War Council, which lets you play one of the top 3 cards on your side from your deck. You have cards like Assassinate, which is somewhere down here, that lets you damage a unit by 6. You got Tourney Joust that damages units by 4, so you get the idea. Stefans pretty much lets you play another tactic card for free as long as it stays alive. Now that's kind of the thing, it has to stay alive, and at 5 power and how valuable this card is, it will probably tend to be destroyed by cards like Alzur's Thunder. If you're playing against another Nilfgaard deck, probably another Assassinate. Stuff like that. So you really gotta be careful in protecting Stefans, because Stefans can actually give you quite a big power boost if you can actually get its order ability off. This card is used in almost every meta Nilfgaard deck that's out there. Enslaved Nilfgaard, Imperial Formation Nilfgaard. If you guys are new to the game and you don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to know what I'm talking about once you step into the field of battle yourself and see sort of the true power of Stefans. Speaking of Stefans and his ability, the second card I actually do have on this list is a card called Bribery, and this card lets you play a unit from your opponent's starting deck. So that's another thing with Nilfgaard, is they're also pretty good at, depending if you're running like an Assimilate deck. Assimilate means you pretty much benefit from every time you play a card that's not from your starting deck. And a good way to do that is a card like Bribery, which lets you play from your opponent's deck, which essentially means that you use their own weapon against them. So let's say if you were playing against a Syndicate deck, you might have the problem with Syndicate though is you also have to worry about the kinds of cards you create from them, because let's say you play a Bribery and you try and create like a Philippa, because obviously it lets you steal a unit from your opponent's side of the field, and that's what Nilfgaard does. It can't do it unless you have coin, which is what Syndicate is known for. So in the case of Syndicate, it's kind of special because they need coins to make their stronger cards even like better. Whereas with other units, like with monsters, which usually rely on really big powered units, Bribery is good for that. If you steal like their 12 power old Spear Tip from their deck from Bribery, you get a 12 power card, and this is essentially a 12 power for 8, which is super powerful. With Northern Realms, it's mostly engines, so if you can steal an engine that sort of boosts your units to protect them, so like the example from previous, Stefans, if you can boost him to be protected from high damaging attacks, then you'll be safe to use him again, to use him to play this card again. And the list goes on pretty much. So Bribery is actually pretty good at using your own weapon, your opponent's own weapon against them. And with addition with your own deck, Bribery can prove to be very powerful, and honestly, like, I've seen a lot of complaints of like people wanting to like nerf Bribery, change how the way Bribery works just because it's so dang powerful, right? So yeah. The next card I wanted to show you, actually, it's up here, and it's Damien. Now, it's very rare that you'll see a deck that doesn't run both Damien and Stefans. These two cards, it's not that they work well with each other, it's just that both their abilities work so well with Nilfgaard's style of play that they're both featured in every deck that's out there. Damien, of course, lets you replay your hero ability twice if it can stay on the field for 1 turn. So if you're running an Enslave 5 unit, you can seize 2 5-cost units in 1 round. If you're running Imperial Formation, then you boost it by 8, get a soldier on the top of the deck, boost it by 8 again with Damien to refresh it, and do it all over again. So essentially, you kind of get the idea there, where using your hero ability twice is actually pretty powerful. Not to mention, Damien himself is already powerful at 5 cost. Not that easy to remove, but it can still be done. But at 11 provision, it is the most expensive Nilfgaard faction card in the deck. But it is that for that reason. It is super powerful, and Nilfgaard's ability is already pretty powerful as it is. With Tactical Decision, which is another hero power, allowing you to play one of the top 3 cards, so you get to deck thin a little bit, and you sort of get to see what cards are coming, so you know immediately. So you kind of already can plan on what to mulligan, etc. So Damien is really good for helping you sort of plan your stuff ahead. If you're playing with Tactical Decision, if you're playing with Imperial Formation, you get an extra boost, and if you play with Enslave, you get to steal yet another unit. So those are 3, in my opinion, the most annoying cards in the deck, I'm not gonna lie. The next card we have here is a card called Swears. Now, the way Swears work is, this is also a seize card, so you can seize a unit with 3 or less power. So a lot of the other factions in Gwent have really strong engine cards, which they gain value over time. But of course, how would it feel if you had that kind of power? Like if you were playing against a Blood Vampires deck and they summon a card like Necrorat, who better than Swears to take the Necrorat, so you can start sort of applying that bleed to your opponent and forcing them to lose power, same way as they're forcing you to lose power. Swears is good like that, but the thing with Seize is it's very, very valuable. Of course, if you're running Enslave, it's not too valuable because you have more than one way of seizing units. But if this is your only source of seize, then it's probably good to use it on really valuable engine cards. So if we're talking Northern Realms, you might want to take, for example, a Redanian Archer, which essentially lets you deal 1 damage to your opponent per turn as long as it has armor. If you're playing against a scoia'tael deck, you might want to target either a Dwarven Mercenary or a Dwarven Berserker, which are both relatively strong cards that are pretty strong. I just doubled myself there. Which are relatively strong engines for the scoia'tael faction. With monsters, like I said, the Necrorat from Blood Vampires is a good one. Or any of their Thrive units. Most of their Thrive units are below 3 power, so that can actually be to your benefit as well, because if you play stronger units than the Thrive unit, then they will also get stronger, similar to what happens with monsters. And you essentially get the idea with how Swears work. Swears is one of those cards that's seen again almost every deck, and honestly, beginner or pro, you can easily use Swears to your advantage. The last card I'm featuring here, and this one is actually pretty interesting, is a card called Roderick of Duntine. So Roderick of Duntine is a spy card which lets you look at 2 random gold cards from your deck, then play 1. This card can be pretty powerful because you have a deck thin. This card thins your deck out because it lets you play 1 of 2 gold cards from your deck, sorry. The potential weakness to this is that because they're randomized, you might potentially get a card that's not so suitable to your favor. But with the way that Nilfgaard works, because you are able to manipulate your deck sort of in ways where you can make it so that you might have only 2 gold cards, let's say by round 3, and if you play Roderick of Time, you're definitely going to be guaranteed to get one of those 2 random gold cards and if one of them was, like, for example, if you were looking for a card like Vilgefortz, let's say, right? And you had like a Tibber in your deck or whatever, you can use Roderick of Duntine to have Vilgefortz out, destroy a unit, and then if Tibber was on top of your deck, that card would get summoned out. So that's the thing with Nilfgaard, is it can manipulate the field in so many ways that, you know, your opponent might not even expect that they're doing it before it's too late. So Roderick of Duntine proves to be very powerful in that case, and not to mention that, let's say that if you did get a sort of an undesirable card, it might be better to do it in, let's say, round 1 or 2 when you have the advantage versus round 3 when it's like, you know, do or die, right? So you gotta be careful with this card as well. But at 6 cost only for a 2 power card that lets you play 1 gold card from your deck, that's actually pretty powerful. So I suggest that, you know, for those of you who are just starting out there in the world of Gwent, this card is good to have in almost any Nilfgaard deck, especially if you're looking for that one piece to sort of help you complete your combo and win the round that you're currently on by playing Roderick of Duntine. So let me go back to the engine. So those are sort of the 5 cards that I got that I would recommend for beginner Gwent players to craft if they're going to venture into the realm of Nilfgaard. So if you guys have any other cards that you guys would have liked to see on this list, feel free to comment them down in the comment section below. Leave a like, of course, if you guys enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more Gwent content. Other than that, Stefans signing out. Catch you guys in the next one.